All right, so I couldn't actually hear what he said, but I've been in payments for a really long time, about 12 years. I used to sell into brick and mortar stores where I kind of first started out. And then I worked for Braintree and WorldPay, selling into international e-commerce stores to help them expand their businesses internationally. I joined Bolt about 7 or 8 months ago. And kind of what I want to talk to you guys about is checkout in the age of the 8-second attention span and how Bolt is going to bring single click to the web. I don't know if you guys noticed, it's pretty subtle here in New York, but it was Halloween last night. Might be the city's actual holiday, official holiday here. I didn't bring a costume because I actually kind of bring one with me every day. People tell me I look like Tom Hanks. They don't ever say I look like Tom Hanks in Big. They never say, which would be great. I think he was, quite a cutie in that movie. But never say, Apollo 13, never say Green Mile, never say Saving Private Ryan. How'd you know? I always get Forrest Gump. So yeah, and I can see it. I get it, guys. It's okay. So now maybe that'll make this memorable. So we're going to focus on this. And so checking out in the age of diminished attention spans. I'd love to know from those of you in the audience that you've made a purchase, how many of you felt like maybe that checkout experience could be improved? Anybody? Yeah? Some masochists in the audience just enjoy the checkout experience the way it is. How many of you have your own websites that you feel like your checkout experience could be improved? Okay, cool. How many of you, this is probably the worst possible scenario, but how many of you have had an experience where you're buying something online and you're rejected because they suspect you of fraud? Anybody? You? All right. I had this happen the other day. So that's the worst possible scenario. You've gone through this laborious process of checking out and then you're rejected, right? It's terrible. So that's what we're going to focus on. Most checkouts on the web are so bad, they're stuck. Oh, it's just my desktop now. Not sure why that is. This is why they recommend that you use their equipment here. Well, this is, I don't know if you recognize this. Is the road to Hana in Hawaii. Very, very pretty. Some help? Is this an AV gentleman coming down here to assist me? Appreciate that. I've got it on the slide there. There's a picture of Clippy. Does anyone remember Clippy from back in the day? This is how bad checkouts are on the web. I feel like Clippy is going to pop out. Like checkout is stuck somewhere in time with Clippy, and they're hanging out together. He's going to pop out. He's going to give us some help as we're checking out here. Next time I'll take the advice. A good idea. I'll show on my desktop. You can see how disorganized I am. Yeah. You could just leave it like that, or hit the present key there. It's just this one here.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
That's all good. All right, so hopefully we're back. Clippy, maybe an idea for next Halloween's costume. Do we go back to Tom Hanks? Yeah, well, here he is in the flesh. So what are some bad experiences in checkout? Page load times. We're talking about 8-second attention spans. I'm not sure that that's really the case, that we really have 8-second attention spans. What we do have is endless choice, right? We have endless possibilities. We have endless distractions online. You're doing everything in your business to spend money to get people to your site, capture their attention, tell an amazing story about your brand. When they get to checkout, we're bored, senseless, and leave, right? There's about 60 or 70% of us that load our cart up and then we take off because your checkout just completely throws us for a loop. There's some of the bad experiences. I won't go through all of these, but things like page load times, right? The average Magento page load is somewhere around 11 seconds between all of the steps just to load the pages. Login walls. This is one of my pet peeves, right? I get to your site and you want me to create an account with your site. I'm not ready to commit to you yet. I just want to buy the product, right? I don't want to actually fill out anything. Mandatory logins, drop-down fields, redundant inputs. I actually went to a site the other day. They asked me to confirm my email twice, which is absurd. One of the things that really bothers me is I go through 20 steps of data to get to a payment field, and you offer me PayPal then. I could have just clicked PayPal in the beginning of this and not had to give all that information to start with, right? So these are some problems that are inherent in just about every single checkout on the web. Checking out today should be as seamless as ordering an Uber. Maybe that's a little passé now to talk about Uber, but it really should be. In the age of Amazon, it should be as easy to check out online. Single-click checkout should be here by now, but it's not. We haven't solved it yet. Google, Facebook, there's lots of them that have tried and failed. I want to show you guys how we're rethinking checkout and how we're thinking about actually getting to a place where single click is available across the entire internet. But I want to talk about why it isn't so far. So if you're thinking of maybe some excuses as to why your checkout still is bad, there are platform limitations. You're likely using Magento's template checkout page, right, to get through, just to have something, right, just to offer your customer something. Risky A/B testing. So it's risky to A/B test. You have lots of things that are plugged into your checkout page. You have all your payment methods, your payment processor, your fraud analysis, your gift cards, tax calculation, shipping. And if you start to A/B test a lot, you might end up with a problem, right? And so what most merchants do is they focus on the rest of the website, because if they just leave checkout the same, they know that maybe they can get a little bit of an uptick in conversion. So it's very risky for merchants to A/B test. Resources. I've never talked to a retailer that was flush with resources, right? So it's very difficult to find the resources to really have a custom-built checkout. You're going to use those templates, and they're going to limit you. Probably the biggest problem in checkout is fragmentation. Right, so this is kind of the space of checkout right now. I just picked a few. This is not even all of them, but we have checkout tools like Magento or whoever your checkout provider is today. You have payment tools that are plugged in. You have fraud tools. You have logistics, tax calculation, lots of fragmentation in the space. And the problem with this is they're not all designed to complement each other. You're gathering information from checkout to feed into these tools. Your consumer doesn't care what you need to verify them for fraud, right? They don't want to enter billing address or billing zip code so you can verify their transaction. You're putting the onus on them to enter that information because you want to do a fraud check, and that's how these different components actually do a fraud check. So what we've done is design a first end-to-end platform for payments, checkout, and fraud, with the idea that all of these components should complement each other. We should make checkout frictionless by having a better fraud analysis, reduce the data requirements from your customer by collecting data from the rest of the website, from other access points, right? And if we do that, then we can actually have a better fraud analysis too, and we can have less false positives and fewer fraud in the business. So this is actually what our checkout looks like. I won't go too demo. They did put a sales guy up on stage, so I'm going to try to keep this not too pitchy. But what we're doing is learning from millions of different checkouts on the web. We're endlessly A/B testing because we have tons of different checkouts we can do this with. So we can A/B test at scale and find out what are the most important things that are going to drive conversion. We have amazing engineers. When I talk about resources, you may not have the resources Amazon has to actually design a custom checkout, right? What we have is a bunch of really talented engineers that just as passionate as you are about your products and your services, they're passionate about making checkout better. So you'll be able to leverage those years of fine-tuning. So while we're reducing data requirements, this is allowing us to have 4 fewer clicks through our checkout, 8 fewer fields that your customers need to enter. We're 35 to 90 seconds faster than the typical Magento checkout online. And to take up some time here, I wanted to kind of show you how this actually stacks up against some of the main retailers online. This is Levi's, Allbirds, and Macy's. Every second of load time results in 7% fewer sales. So if you look at the load times here across all of their pages, 3-page checkout, Levi's is at 11.7 seconds. This is just load time. It's not how long it takes you to get through the checkout. It's just their load time. Allbirds at 16.6, and Macy's at almost 18 seconds. Ours loads on an average of 1.6 seconds. So we're talking about 8-second attention spans. We've captured that. We can get these people through checkout really, really fast before they lose interest. In fact, we can delight them with the checkout experience the same way they've been delighted throughout your navigation path through your website. Really quickly, I don't want to bore us too much here, but what we do out in the hall here, if anyone's interested, come talk to us. We actually do an analysis of a side-by-side comparison with your checkout versus our checkout. This gentleman here, who just snuck in the door, Nick, will be happy to do this for you. So if you want to come take a look, he'll actually run through your checkout, show you some things that maybe are problems with it, and then compare that with the Bolt checkout. This is single click. This is probably the most important thing that we can talk about here. Once your customer has checked out with Bolt for the first time and had that amazing experience, the second time they come back, they're going to be able to check out with a single click without a login. We recognize their device ID, and they're able to check out seamlessly. We're the only payment network that has network effects in this way, right? So if you've ever checked out on a Bolt website, you can check out on the next website with a single click, even if you've never been there. Make sense? So this is how we're going to conquer single click. I know there are other options out there, but they all rely on you staying within their platform, right? There's Magento single click, there's Shopify single click. Ours is platform agnostic. So whatever platform you're on, it's going to work across all platforms. If someone's checked out on one of our other partners, they can check out with you for the first time with a single click. I'm not going to go too far into fraud, but we've completely indemnified fraudulent transactions. So you don't have to deal with fraud anymore. We do all of the order review. It completely comes out of your business. Focus on being a merchant. Focus on what you guys do. And we're going to focus on making sure you have zero fraud in your business and making sure that we have very high order approval rates. I was in payments for a pretty long time, and the payment business is all about saving 10 or 20 basis points on your transactions, which might be exciting to some finance people in the audience, might be exciting to a CFO. This is much more exciting. We're talking about orders of magnitude of revenue, more revenue to the business, 10 to 50%. This is literally what our merchants are seeing, 10 to 50% more revenue to their business. I want to show you really quickly what we've done for one customer, Invicta. Invicta generated a tremendous amount of new revenue with Bolt. These guys had Magento, they had Authorize.net, they had Signified. They were using multiple tools to try to accomplish checkout and try to remove risk from their checkout, but they still had chargebacks, they still had false positives, they still had people that were reviewing orders and spending time actually doing this in their business. When they came over to Bolt, we replaced them with a single solution, gave them a great checkout experience, and they didn't have to review those orders anymore, and their chargebacks went to zero. More importantly, we increased their checkout conversion rate by 153%. Astronomical. So these guys actually went live with us just 2 weeks before Black Friday, and we're very happy that they did. Kind of a funny story. The VP of e-commerce actually left Invicta after this, and he went to a new company called USP Motorsports. If you look at that website, they've also implemented Bolt, right? Because he had a great experience and has done some great work there as well. This is approval rate, 17% approval rate. These are orders that were being declined by Signified previously that are now being approved by Bolt. So while you guys are really focusing on driving traffic to your site, you're spending a ton in customer acquisition costs, you're spending a ton in SEO, you're doing everything right in terms of personalization and getting people captured and getting their interest and telling your brand story, it's really easy to make sure that your checkout experience matches that amazing experience they've had up to that point. And this is kind of what we're doing in the space. One thing I wanted to do for you guys, I know this is a little demo-y and a little pitchy. One thing that we do for merchants is to do a 50-point checklist. A report card on your checkout. And we would do this for any merchant. So we'd go through your actual checkout and show you how many things that maybe you've missed, how many things you're doing right. And you can use this. Even if you don't ever use Bolt, you can use this to make adjustments. And so our experts on checkout will actually go through this with you, provide that report card to you, and I want to extend that to everybody in the audience. And that's my presentation. Any questions, guys? Yeah. Yes.
No risk to you.
Yep.
So let's say, and by high dollar value, I mean, let's say a $30,000, $40,000 checkout.
I was just about to say, yeah. So we work with a few different diamond companies, jewelers, watch companies as well. Some of these have $2 million watches on their sites. We'll indemnify those transactions. In fact, the other day we indemnified a $40,000 diamond transaction that we shipped the product, and it was actually came back as a chargeback, a fraudulent chargeback, so we covered it. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. I'm curious. What do you see as the main, like if you were to get, I know, I apologize because I came.
No, that's okay.
For the 50-point checklist you mentioned, what do you think are like the top 3 to 5 for growing companies for them to be aware of?
Bolt, number 1. They should integrate Bolt. No, I think for a growing company, have payment options listed early on in your process. Mobile is growing like crazy. Don't make me go through 20 different form fields to get to PayPal. That's absurd. Have PayPal listed right when I click on the cart. Have Apple Pay listed right when I click on the cart. That way I can do one-click purchasing. I don't have to go through all this rigmarole to get to my payment options. So I think that's a big one. Don't have a login wall. Have guest checkout. This is, I talk to lots of retailers and I always have an excuse for why they have a login wall. There's no excuse for this frustrating piece of this, right? You can gather that information later on in the process. Let me buy the product first. Don't make me actually log in first, right? And don't even present it as an option. Would you like to log in or check out as a guest? Just get me to the guest checkout quickly, right? The fewer page loads, the better. Get me to the checkout process. The faster, the better. Yes, sir.
I came a bit late too, so just want to
Yep.
on the one-click checkout. But what do you think is like innovation or transformation for checkout? I know now the one-click checkout is like table stakes. So what do you think is like will drive innovation and transformation going forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems with most of the one checkouts out there. They're limited, right? So if you want to use Amazon one-click, that's fine, but I think we all know what Amazon is doing with that information, right? You can see now Amazon is starting to get into every line of business, right? They're now making Casper-like mattresses, right? So they're capturing this data. There's a lot of information you can get from a transaction. So you want to make sure that the business models are aligned, right? There are, Apple Pay, but it's limited to people that have an Apple device. It's limited to Safari, right? So there's all these limitations. What we really think is the way to do this is you got to start from the ground up. You have to go out, acquire merchants that are interested in this type of a platform. You have to build the same network. Where PayPal really stopped short of doing this, PayPal could have conquered this, but they really missed their opportunity to do that and have really focused on just being a wallet and just being a payment method. What we're really focused on is how do we make an amazing checkout experience for the first time so we can capture that card data, and then how do we make that data portable across every merchant in our network? And I think that's the right approach to get to a single-click environment on the web. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah? Yes, sir?
So how much do you think yourself as far as regarding like fraud detection for the merchants? Do you see it more as you guys are a streamlining force within the process, or is this what's your point?
Yeah, I think fraud has added friction to checkout, right? So you're putting the onus on your customers by asking them for things like a CVV, by asking them for things like a zip code or a billing address. So you're putting this information, the customer has to put this in so that you can defend yourself against fraud. There are so many different data elements that we can draw from rather than having the customer actually enter that information. Now we should be able to do that, right? We shouldn't have to put that onus on the customer. And so that's where Bolt thinks that adding fraud detection in really does help make the checkout better because we're looking at all these other data elements. If a merchant says, I'm a little worried that you're taking away some of my security, we've actually said, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to indemnify all your fraudulent chargebacks. But in the background, there's a very sophisticated fraud algorithm that's happening. We're doing all of the order review as well. So the workload for fraud and loss prevention completely comes off the merchant, right? The workload for checkout completely comes off the merchant, and they can focus on everything else before checkout that they're doing and doing well to drive conversion and drive people to that checkout page.
And again, I apologize because I came
Yeah, please.
Are there, are you guys PCI and SOC 2?
Yeah. So bank level security here. We are PCI compliant. We're storing all the card information. If you think about it, it's the highest level of PCI compliance. It's PCI SAQ level A. So it's effectively like a hosted payment page, right? So no credit card data is passing over your servers.
Do you guys have any plans for subscription services? I know we're talking about one-click.
Yeah.
Can't be subscription.
Yeah, no, we want to support everything. Subscription will be rolled out, I'm hoping, toward the end of next month as a part of the platform. So as we're capturing all this card, this is the part of the problem with fragmentation, right? So you would have to have two separate processes, one for subscriptions, one for one-time purchases. We want you to be able to do everything through Bolt. And we certainly see ourselves as that full stack provider to be able to do subscription. That'll come out at the end of the month. We're launching internationally. Canada's going to start first. It's going to happen at the beginning of next year. And then shortly after that, we'll be launching the UK and Europe as well.
And do you have like specific models of subscriptions that you're launching with, or is it customizable?
Totally customizable by the merchant, right? So whatever price level, however this, maybe you want to have several different packages of subscriptions, things like that. You'll have full flexibility there. We'll have dunning logic or retry logic as it's known. We'll have things like account updater. So if cards ever expire or are lost or stolen, then we're updating those cards in the background as long as that cardholder's bank participates in that program. So it'll be a fully sophisticated recurring billing product. No, please, yeah.
Do you guys, this might be a silly question, do you guys then handle the account page in Magento for the users, or are you guys separate from that?
The account page for the users.
So theoretically speaking, you still have your account page in Magento, but then do you guys connect to that, or do you do the front end and back end for that as well? Or
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways of doing it. So if you're talking about a login, Like you want your users to log into their account. There's a couple different ways to do that. We have, if you look at Shop Akira, we do theirs. They have a login. We advise against it because there's other ways to do this. They have a login before checkout. It's just not a great, it's not great, right, for conversion, especially for first-time customers. And given the fact that Bolt has one click, then you really don't necessarily need it. But we are passing all of that customer data back to Magento. So if you're trying to capture, repeat orders and the value of a single customer, all those things that you care about in terms of keeping tabs on that account, we're passing all of that data back. And we do give options for how do we get people to log in? Can we have them log in after the sale? Can we have them log in before the sale? How do we want to do that? And our engineers work with individual merchants on their specific workflows and how they want to get there. Cool. Yeah.
Are you gonna have like a credit card at all? So like customers like save their, they want to save their credit card, you know what I mean, for later or something like that? Or is that just part of like the?
Yeah, that's part of the one click, right? So when the customers come in and they make their first purchase, we're vaulting that information. And this was when I was at Braintree, this was like the promise of Braintree was that we were going to take all these cards we had vaulted for Uber and Airbnb and all of these huge customers, and we were going to make them available to all of our merchants. It never happened. PayPal bought us, and that dream went out the window. But that's the dream here at Bolt is that we have all these customers and what we should be doing is storing all this credit card data and making it portable across all of our merchants. And that's exactly what we're doing. So if one person's made a purchase at Shop Akira, they can then go to Invicta Watches for the first time ever and buy a watch with a single click because that information is tokenized and vaulted.
What if the merchant wants to have their own like recurring payment engine?
Yep.
Be able to like take like a token, like how Braintree has a token.
Yep.
Would it be something similar, or you guys would just own the whole recurring engine?
Yeah, so our merchants will still own all of their information, right? They'll have full data portability. This is part of the thing that's important with Bolt. So they'll own it, but we'll be storing the tokens, right? If they ever want their tokens and want to move it, they can, but we'll be storing that. We'll allow for those recurring transactions. Yeah. I think they're rushing me out of here, guys, but it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate all the thoughtful questions. We're going to be here. We've got a booth outside, so come see Nick and I. We've got a few other people here. Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.